As followers of Jesus, we believe that his presence anywhere, in any situation, is good news. And last week, our theme was good news for the lost. Today, our theme is good news for the weary. Good news for the weary. So I thought I'd begin with a question. Put your hand up if you've ever been tired. Quite a few of you had, and some of you are still fast asleep. Okay, here's another question. Put your hands up if you've ever been weary. Yeah, you have to think about it, don't you? Thank you. Hands down. I think that there's actually a difference between being tired and being weary. It's like when you're tired, you can have a rest. The best thing to do when you're tired is you have a rest. You put in a hard day's work. You have a good night's rest. Big Scottish breakfast. And you're raring to go again. That's what you do when you're tired. When you're weary, the very thought of doing work makes you feel tired. I think that's the difference. And we can experience, I think we all do this, we can experience physical weariness when we're out of energy. Or we can experience mental weariness I tend to think we're out of enthusiasm. We can experience physical or spiritual weariness. That's that sense that you've given your all and you're just drained dry. You've got nothing left to give. And it might be that there are people here today who can relate to any one of those three conditions, or perhaps all three. And if that's you, then listen to these words from Jesus that Robert's going to read to us now. They're from Matthew chapter 11.
Matthew chapter 11, verses 25 to 30. At that time, Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this was your good pleasure. All things have been committed to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
Thank you, Robert. I'm always amazed how even the best-known passages in Scripture can still surprise me. So here we have, buried in this passage, one of the most often quoted verses in the Bible. And yet its context still surprises me, and maybe surprises you as well. I think today's passage, in it, Jesus is mentioning some deep and profound truths. And they are truths that lie at the very heart of the Christian faith. And the reason I think they're quite profound is they show how our Christian faith is different. In fact, they show how it might be seen as unique. And it's important for us to grapple with this just now, because we sort of live in an age, it's really a secular age. And the sort of strapline is, the fashionable way to think about things goes something like, all religions are the same. All religions are the same. And that statement may well be true, but only to a very, very limited extent. It's a bit like saying, all treatments for an illness are the same, because they're a treatment for that illness. That's what makes them the same. You see what I mean? But the fact that their intention is the same doesn't mean to say that their effectiveness is the same. Some treatments for an illness may work. Some treatments for an illness may not work. Some treatments for an illness may actually make things worse. They may do more harm than good, but they're all treatments for an illness. And you can actually use that idea of intention and effectiveness when you're thinking about other faiths or world religions. Their intention is all the same. They want to connect us to God. That's what they're trying to do. But their effectiveness, some may lead us closer to God, some may not make any difference at all in how close to God we are. Some may actually take us further away from God. They're certainly not all the same in their effectiveness. Listen to Jesus' words in verse 25. There's a slide there. There's a sequence of slides actually after the reading. Is there not? Oh, yeah, never mind. Well, just take it off blanket, and I'll just read it. There we go, sorted. It's amazing. You can actually read things straight from a book. Have you ever done that? Okay, here we go. Listen to his words in verse 25. They're actually quite profound. I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to little children. Revealed them to little children. Our faith is a revealed faith. You can sort of divide all the religions of the world into almost two categories. There's what I think of as the bottom-up category and the top-down category. And the bottom-up, it sounds good in theory. Bottom-up is where you start with what you know and what you understand, what you experience, and you try and understand God from that basis. So you're working your way up from where you are, and you're trying to understand God. Sounds great, but that's God we're talking about. How can we possibly understand the creator of the universe? So it's limited in what we can do. And the result is what I would describe as collective guesswork. You know? We're just doing what we do, but we're starting from what we know. The top-down one is a wee bit different. The top-down one starts with a humble realization that we can never know God, that he's beyond our mind's ability to comprehend, but that he still wants to reveal himself to us. He wants to make himself known. Another difference, bottom-up religions tend to appeal to the wise and to the learned, to the knowledgeable, to the scholarly, to the philosophical. And there's always a danger they become elitist because of that. Whereas top-down, doesn't matter who you are, how old you are, how young you are, what your background, God can still reveal himself to you. All you need to do is be open to his presence. All you need to do is be open to his voice. So our faith is a revealed faith. And there are other revealed faiths who would sort of categorize themselves as revealed faith. They tend to be known as book-based, the people of the book. Have you heard that expression? So Islam regards itself as the people of the book. And Judaism is the people of the book. Christianity, we too have a book. But Jesus then goes on to draw a further distinction in the next verse. Well, in verse 27, he says this, no one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Again, there's that word reveal. No one knows the Father except the Son. He's drawing a further distinction here. Whereas Judaism is about God revealing himself to us through prophets like Moses. And whereas Islam is about God revealing himself to us through prophets like Muhammad. Christianity is based on the understanding that God is revealing himself to us in person. He's not going through anyone. He's going through that person called Jesus, who is God. So when Jesus is speaking, it's God speaking. When Jesus is laughing, it's God laughing. When Jesus is mourning, it's God mourning. In Jesus, we are seeing God. We are hearing God's voice. There's no intermediary anymore. And the implications, all that was, I'll just illustrate that, in another famous verse in the Bible. This is from John chapter 14. Jesus' disciple Philip said, "Lord, show us the Father, and that will be enough for us." Jesus answered, "Don't you know me, Philip? Even after I've been among you such a long time, anyone who has seen me has seen the Father." In Jesus, God is revealing himself to us in person. And the implications for this are quite profound. They're quite far-reaching, because Jesus is connecting us with God. And that connection is no longer dependent on what we do. It's no longer dependent on us obeying lots of rules or us practicing lots of traditions. Oh, I better get this right, otherwise it's no longer dependent on that at all. All it's dependent on is us opening up our hearts to his presence, inviting him into our lives, allowing his Spirit to guide us. And those fundamental truths are going to be celebrated this morning by the folks who are going to come up and make their vows of commitment in front of us all. Because that's what makes us different. So, if this is what we believe, what difference does it make? Especially to those of us who are feeling weary. Well, listen again to Jesus' words. Now, remember, this is God speaking. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me." And he starts off well there, doesn't he? "Come to me, all you who are burdened and weary, I will give you rest." And we're all thinking, yes, I'm going to have a piece of that. That's just what I need right now. That's just the medicine I'm looking for. Yes, I'll get a good rest. And then he spoils it all. He starts talking about yokes. I mean, why did he have to do that? I was quite liking the idea of a rest. I was envisioning, sunshine, a nice gin and tonic, perhaps. And he starts talking about yokes. Why does he have to talk about yokes? And the other thing about yoke, the other thing we don't like, let's be honest, is the idea of being yoked to someone. I mean, yoke itself sounds bad enough. It sounds like all this hard work. And then being yoked to someone, I mean, we like our independence. We like our freedom. We don't want to be yoked to anyone. Why on earth does Jesus use the word yoke? Why can't he just stick to burdens? Why can't he talk about, my rucksack is light? Why, or he could talk maybe the responsibilities I give you will be very, very, there'll be nothing to worry about there. Why does he have to mention yoke? It sort of spoils everything. Well, you're probably beginning to work out from some of the things Laura said that there's more to it than that. Here in the West, we tend to have lost touch with our sort of unmechanized agricultural roots. So watching oxen plow is not something that's part of our everyday experience. It would have been part of the everyday experience of people in Jesus' day, but it's not so much part of our everyday experience in our day. However, it may come as a surprise for you to know that Lindsay and I used to live in a village in a very unmechanized rural economy. So we saw people plowing every day, and it was wonderful to watch. You saw the whole cycle from plowing to harvest. You saw the oxen pulling the plow with the farmer behind them, and then you saw the oxen with I'm not sure what it's called, this great big thing of wood that you stand on, and it flattens the field after it's been plowed and smooths all the soil, getting ready for the rain or getting ready for the irrigation. And then the farmer sows the seed, and then the seed grows, and then they harvest it. And then the oxen are back again. This time they're threshing it with their hooves. They're going round and round and round. They're tied to the central pole, and they're yoked together, going round and round and round. Again with the farmer behind them, they're threshing it with their hooves. And then eventually it's winnowed, and you end up with a pile of grain, and it's put in sacks. And yes, the oxen, once again, this time they're tethered to a cart, and the grain is put in the cart, and it's taken either home or it's taken to market. And the whole sort of wonderful, life-giving cycle has a pair of oxen at the very heart of it. So again, the question, why yoke? Well, two things that we know from yoke. it guarantees teamwork. The oxen have to work together and the farmer has to work with them. Otherwise, it just won't work. And the other thing, that Laura mentioned, and this is something Lindsay and I saw firsthand, is there's always a lead oxen and there's always a sort of trainee oxen. The lead oxen tends to be the most experienced oxen. The lead oxen knows the farmer's voice. The lead oxen knows the commands, what they mean. It's usually quite simple. It's left, right, stop, go, faster. That's basically it. But the lead oxen knows those. And so he's the one that nudges the wee one, or the trainee oxen. It doesn't have to be wee, but the trainee in the right direction gets them to stop, gets them to start. You need a lead oxen and you need a trainee. That's how the whole thing works. And the people listening to Jesus would know that. So here's Jesus. He says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me." This is where I think it gets really profound. And I never really thought of this before. Because when you think of that picture of the oxen, you tend to always think God's the one at the back, telling the oxen where to go. And I think this is another reason why Jesus uses the word yoke. So Jesus reveals God to us. And the God he reveals to us is not the God at the back telling us where to go. He's the God by our side who's taking the lead and sharing our burdens with us in person. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." We're not being asked to yoke ourselves to some unknown God, some judgmental God, some capricious God. We are being asked to yoke ourselves to the God who makes himself known in Jesus, who really is gentle and humble of heart, who's proved this to us by his time on earth when he really was gentle and humble. And he always had time for the lost and the weary and the outcasts. And who's proved his love for us beyond any doubt by his sacrifice for us. He gave his life for us. So we're being asked to yoke ourselves to this God. And the other profound thing about the yoke is, that means that he's chosen to be yoked to us too. If we choose to be yoked to him, he's going to be yoked to us. He'll be in it for the long haul, through the thick and the thin. He'll still be there. That's his commitment to us. And he will never ask us to go anywhere without going with us, because he's yoked to us. And he'll never ask us to do anything that we are unable to do in his strength, because he's beside us. See what I mean? It's really quite profound. This is the God revealed to us in Jesus. So, what have we learned? Well, this is what I've learned, that rest for your soul doesn't mean sitting back doing nothing. Rather, it means walking in the comfort and the security that Jesus' presence brings. Rest for your soul. I've learned that our Christian faith doesn't mean that we're never going to have any burdens, because we will have burdens. But rather that every burden we are carrying, we will be sharing with the one who walks beside us. And finally, oxen come in pairs. You can't pull a plow on your own. It just doesn't work that way. You'll end up going round and round in circles. We can't do things on our own. We want to change the world. We cannot do it on our own. We do need Jesus beside us. So here's the question for us all this morning. Do you want rest for your soul? Do you want rest for your soul? Listen to these words. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, my burden is light. Amen.